Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. Thank you again for tuning in week after week. You guys are amazing. I love you. I can't tell you the lives that are being changed. It chokes me up. So many people have reached out and said, hey, I listened to one of your podcasts, one of your guests that was on there, and it changed my life, saved my life. And I just can't thank you enough for sharing this with people who are struggling, because so many of us unfortunately are, but it's beautiful because there's hope and people are actually changing their lives through this, and it's wonderful. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Siegfried and Jensen, Wasatch Recovery, and Veracity Networks. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for believing in me. And then again, thank you guys for tuning in week after week, and we're only going to keep going and getting bigger. And it's because of our guests. Today is no different. We have an amazing person on today. Her name's Laura Roe. Laura, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you bet. A little background. She's the author of The Art of Flow, Mindful Mini Meditations, right? I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. She has another book that's coming out. And she's been through a lot herself. She cured an autoimmune disease via yoga, meditation, and visualizing and nutrition. And I am a big proponent and pusher of visualizing. That is one of the most powerful things that we can do as human beings. So I can't wait to hear what she's did there. She overcame grief and betrayal by learning to fully forgive. She suffered from PTSD, from violence and abuse that she was able to get past. You've actually penned 3 novels, right? We'll talk about that. You raised 2 children solo, which is not an easy task. That's probably been the most difficult, but yet the most rewarding, right?
Yeah.
One of the things Laura and I were talking about off air is how she discovered that happiness and the ability to feel good is always a choice. And I can't wait to talk and dig into that. But there's so much more that she's done, but I can't wait for you guys to hear from her. But again, Laura, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Why don't we just start off? Tell us where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in North Carolina. I grew up on the border of an old tobacco farm.
Okay.
Still had shacks from slave days, and it became a horse and cattle farm. But my parents met at Duke, so we had this interesting yin yang existence of the intellectuals and then the country. It was kind of a cool place to grow up.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up. And the South, I don't know if any of your listeners are from the South. The South there's a dichotomy in the South where people will bring you pies when you move in, and can be it can be really, really friendly, and you can have this sense of security, and yet there's a deep embedded history of a type of love that is ownership love. And so you have a lot of violence in the South. And it's always been there. It's kind of an interesting thing. So I think it's hard to navigate as a woman. And I certainly, even in high school, even before high school, was chased by someone who wanted to attack me, and survived a school shooting of my best friend. By a stalker, and so early on I was trying to navigate that and get over that. So I don't know how I feel about ever moving back to the South, but I've certainly overcome what I went through, which is good.
Yeah, you're live in California today, in the sunny, cool California right now, and yeah, I've always been a fan of North Carolina, but just because I'm a huge basketball fan, and I'm more of a North Carolina Tar Heels fan versus a Duke. But they're both amazing programs. So that's kind of been my experience just from a distance. I've actually never been there, but people that have gone there, they love it. They say it's beautiful. But I've also heard similar things that what you just mentioned. So as a young child going through some of those scary things you just mentioned, how did that affect, your childhood and maybe you as a person? Did it cause you to kind of, withdraw and isolate, or did it cause you to, have to seek out therapy at that time? I mean, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
No, I don't mind at all. I mean, a surprising thing about me, because I'm talkative now, I was very shy as a little girl. And I didn't really talk to strangers till I was 11, outside the family kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I've been a dancer since I was 5, and a pretty good one. And what I learned from what I went through is kind of sad, and now I've overcome that. But it was sort of when stalkers came about, one killed my partner. Yeah, and like jealous rages that I went through with a boyfriend, and some of my girlfriends did too. It was like there was something like to be ashamed of if you're attractive. There was something to be ashamed of if you got if you became good at something like dancing, where there's really nothing to be ashamed of. Right. And so it was really hard to navigate. And so it propelled me into my intellect. And now I've sort of married the two. Okay. So when I went to college, I picked University of Georgia out of happenstance. One of my best friends from childhood went there, and after my friend was murdered, and it was a mess. I was a mess my senior year, and I just drove up to UGA and showed them my test scores, and they're like, "Okay, you can go here, but you have to see us every week." That was what a counselor said. Okay. And I did, and I just threw myself into writing and working at the newspaper, and that's literally how I became a journalist. I was trying to figure out my world, and I covered crime back then. Okay. And but at the same token, it was just my way of being able to ask for help. I could interview experts. I could interview attorneys who could explain these things. And I learned about, and I was writing for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution while I was in college, and I was writing about rape cases on campus. It was just, I was very interested in that area because of what I went through. So, and my sister, one of my sisters also had been attacked by someone pretending to be a police officer. So there was a lot in the South that I experienced. And maybe it's all over the country, but that was where I grew up. And so finding a way, like I used to in college wear baggy pants and no makeup on. Like I didn't want any attention. And I stopped dancing, and it was a shame because I loved dancing. It made me happy. So, finding a way to be free and free of fear is really what PTSD is about, like getting over PTSD is about.
Well, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you got into writing, even though you were maybe writing about some heavy things, was that also a way for you to kind of like, therapize yourself, kind of a way to start healing a little bit because you could really express yourself through writing?
Well, I think another thing about being a really tiny blonde woman in the South is that when you want to interview experts, oftentimes you get mansplained. And it's still a case. My friends that are journalists say they still have these issues. And oftentimes you'll get the honey and the sweetie in the South, and it's demoralizing. And so I purposely didn't go the route of TV after one internship, and I felt that experience. And I was newspaper or radio. And if you call up I even interviewed former secretaries of states, and you get a deeper voice and you ask the right questions and they respond. And it was just a way to really learn, because again, I was shy and I had been through so much. I was afraid to do a lot of things, but I could talk about it. I could interview people about it. And it was, while I was at University of Georgia in 1990, they didn't even have laws across the country that helped women. They didn't have telephone poles around the schools where you could call in case of an emergency. A lot of time, my roommate at UGA got gang raped by fraternity boys, and she was shamed. And she flew to Virginia to get psychological help, and no one no one was penalized. So I was just all these things were going in my mind where I was refusing to become someone who hated men, because that's not the point. But I wanted to write about the connection between alcohol, the connection between these events, and to interview experts about it. So I got to interview people on campus, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? How are we going to catch these? Why aren't you reporting how many students are getting attacked off campus, but just because they're not in dorms? Why isn't this? And now all of that's reported. So it felt really good to play a role in that,
for sure,
because I wasn't ready at the time to talk about what I went through. So instead, it's like when you hear about like someone who started Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? And she shares her whole story. Well, I was just an 18, 19-year-old kid. I wasn't ready to share my story, nor did I feel comfortable with it, because I was pretty shy, but I could get involved in my own way. And it felt great. And I was hooked. I was hooked right then and there of making a difference in my own way. And then figuring out from an expert, oh, there's free counseling. Oh, there's this, and I was like, I got a counselor when I was there through an interview with someone. Like, they didn't have to know that, you know what I mean? It's like,
totally.
Yeah.
No,
so
that's pretty impressive for being that young and being willing, even though you weren't really sharing your story, to people, but very brave of you to actually do these interviews with these, maybe men who, maybe seemed intimidating at the time. And, and also you brought awareness to these issues, and things started to change. And so that says a lot about you. I mean, that's pretty brave for a young girl to do that.
But I mean, I'm behind a microphone. I wasn't like the police or, like for instance, there was a junior who got attacked my senior year, and she was in an apartment with all these other sorority girls, and someone broke into her sliding glass door and stabbed her multiple times. It was never reported because the school did not want to thwart other people from applying. And these sort of things still happen, but it was happening all the time back in 90, 91. And it's appalling, it's because you need that information out there. Maybe somebody knew. You think about it. It was before cell phones and everyone's taking pictures and Twitter and and it's like, what if somebody knew and somebody had a description and somebody could? What if that person went on to attack others? And it is so appalling to me when I think of it now. But back then, I was just sort of, that's weird. Yeah. And we ended up pulling information from all these other schools and writing a big article that ended up getting in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And if it did anything at all, if it helped one girl at least report, then that's a miracle. Because back then it was just so common. It was it's awful. I'm so glad I had boys. If I had girls going to college right now, I'd have PTSD over it. But I know it's a safer environment now. They have a lot more information. So
I have 3 girls that one's already graduated from college. The other 2 are in college and on campus, and it is a lot safer. But again, there's always that, fear of what you're talking about. And again, after studying up on you and just what you've been through, you've lived like 1,000 lifetimes, it feels like.
I know, right? I'm a cat.
Yeah.
At least nine.
Yeah. But I'm so impressed though by, again, not only what you were doing back then, but what you're doing now. And we're going to get into that here in a minute. But, you mentioned to me that you're a health and wellness journalist for like over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Talk about that experience and what you learned from that, because we talked about how you've done a lot of help with people who struggle with addictions and anxiety and depression and PTSD and all that. Talk about that journey a little bit.
Wow. Well, it started when I was pregnant with my now 19-year-old. I'm in denial, but I had been writing about business and technology, mostly the career side. People always interest me, but I was writing a lot for like Forbes and a couple of their Inc. And I was writing about careers. And I would always niche myself in work-life balance. So like, I'm a little selfish. I'll start writing about things I want to learn. Anyway, and I realized I was like 8 months pregnant with my son, and I hadn't had time because I had so many deadlines. I hadn't had time to read up enough on pregnancy. So I kept pitching these magazines, and I ended up getting a column of Fit Pregnancy magazine. And that got me really into the health world. And I never looked back. I still write about pregnancy today. It's such a critical time for women to take care of themselves and for their partners to help them, and more so than we even realize. So anyway, I still do that, and I teach prenatal yoga. However, I started writing about all different kinds of health issues. And one of the common denominators, I helped the American Cancer Society launch their magazine. So I've been writing about cancer for 20 years. There's a common denominator with everything, whether it's Alzheimer's, whether it's cancer, heart disease, and addiction, depression, and that's stress. And if we can lower our stress levels and autoimmune disease, I was living in London and flew back here to see like the top rheumatologist in the world. Lucky me, he was free. And he told me about 15 years ago, his name is Dr. Shack, and he said, we don't have substantial evidence yet, because these trials sometimes take 10 years of studies. But I can tell you, if you do meditation, yoga, deep breathing, and regular moderate exercise, and you don't drink, you will no longer have lupus. Really? It's going to go away.
Wow.
And he's like, you can't quote me on that, but I know.
But I know,
and so, and that started my journey with yoga, and I taught myself. I've done like 7 trainings since then, but in the beginning, I did a yoga for dummies, DVD, and I was living in London. I would do it in the morning, and then it was also do a diabetic diet. You lower your sugar, and since then I've written a lot of articles, and there's a science behind what happens in the brain, and we have different areas of the brain. I won't get into that because people listening will be like, oh, but if you think about it, when you're really, really anxious and you can't breathe and you're nervous, your fight or flight mechanism is lit up. And that's high levels of cortisol, high levels of glucagon. And that is meant to be happening if you're running for your life, not if you are triggered by a story on the news. And so, but this happens, and how do we deal with it? And our heart rate's going crazy too. So we start getting reactive, because the area of the brain that's supposed to work really fast is a reactionary area of the brain, not a response oriented, which means I pause, I tap in, I take a few breaths, and I detach from the illusion of what is happening. What is really happening? I'm here right now and I'm safe. I detach, I breathe. And you can take many meditation pauses like that, and it literally trains your brain to respond rather than react. And you just keep doing it throughout the day. And then eventually you can work up to like a full 5 or 10 minute meditation throughout the day. And and that allows your brain just to completely relax. Almost like you've taken a vacation. And so you're not in the looping thoughts, because no matter what's happening in your life, whether it's financial troubles or maybe family issues or health issues, overthinking about it causes chronic stress, which causes more chronic health issues. But even me saying that doesn't change anything. I can intellectually understand a concept. And I can talk about it all day long. I mean, I'm in a support group. I can talk about it all day long with my friends that are also drinking coffee. That's not going to help me feel safe, help me feel calm, help me, master my emotions and thoughts. And meditation helps you do that, as well as lowering the toxicity levels in your blood. So where there is an acidic blood area is where cancer can grow. So there's all these sort of pinpoints that the National Institute of Health is studying right now, which I find that I just wrote an article about it yesterday, and it's just so much coming out where they're able to study thousands of people who meditate versus those who don't, those who have heart conditions, those who have depression, those who are overcoming addiction, and then they notice, 5 years out how they're doing. And I love that, because if anyone needs, all you have to do is feel it though, to know it. But some people need that extra testing, especially physicians, to recommend it. So I'm heartened by that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I love that. I love what you're saying. It reminds me of a quote. I think, I guess don't quote me on this, but I think it was Eckhart Tolle that said, if you understand something intellectually and it stays there, you've never truly experienced it. And that's basically what you were just saying. I love what you just said there.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things too, Laura, I have clients, and I'm not kidding you, without fail, 100% of the time they say, I can't stop thinking. And they come in and they're, like you said, high stress, high levels of anxiety. And so, how do you talked about how, again, curing that immune disease via yoga, meditation, visualizing, and nutrition. How does someone do that? Like when you meet with a client or you meet with someone who's struggling in that realm, how do you get them to like start believing that they can actually do that?
I don't talk about it.
Okay.
I don't talk about it.
Okay.
I think we talk so much, especially in this country.
Yeah.
And so I teach restorative yoga to cancer patients at a hospital here in LA. I have for 7 years. You don't get a higher level anxiety than that, especially during the pandemic this past year.
Man.
That's why I wrote that meditation book. It was like a love letter to them because they couldn't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
We do deep breathing.
Okay.
We don't talk about it because I want someone to experience it. I don't until you experience something, you don't wrap your mental arms around it. You just don't.
Yeah.
And so, we could do a couple of deep breaths here if you want to. I mean, the idea is to fill your lungs and your belly. And as you exhale, you soften the stomach and the intestines, because the intestines have so many neurons that light up. There's no wonder, like, when you get that, the spider feeling of anxiety, like your spider sense, often your stomach kills you, right? There's that gut reaction. And some people have to use the bathroom right away. Sorry. But, and some people get nauseous right away. If you've ever had extreme heartache, or if you've been through a divorce, sometimes you just can't eat. There's something in the gut that I'm convinced has so much to do with the rest of our health, including depression. And deep breathing eases your belly. And then when your belly eases, your heart eases, and then your brain starts to soften a little bit. And that's usually where I start.
Okay.
I don't even want to talk about it, because most of the time people have therapists or best friends or sponsors. And I think sometimes I listen to a lot of Abraham. I don't know if you've heard of Abraham, but Esther Hicks Abraham. And a lot of times we can get on this, it's like a dog with a bone. We can start gnawing on a topic, and that alone is anxiety inducing because we start focusing more on it. And I really believe that we do have to understand where we came from. Like, I needed to understand what I went through to get over the abuse and the neglect that we haven't even talked about, and the abandonment, because I had to get over a lot of things. So I needed to understand some of the ways I dealt with things, because maybe that was a pattern in childhood and it worked then, but they're not the right tools now. I'm sure you've heard of that, and sort of, and that's good. But then sometimes we just have to drop the story and be like, right here, right now, I'm okay. All is well right now. And the more that we feed ourselves positive messages, we start to believe it. But the more we get into fear, it's just like, I hate using this analogy because it seems like a silly one, and I don't mean to trivialize this, especially when there's PTSD involved. But think about it. Like, if you want to buy a new car, you suddenly see that car everywhere. When before you didn't, the same color, the model, everything. Well, when we start panicking, I'm never gonna pay rent. My boss always hates me. He's never going to listen to me. This isn't ever going to happen. Why even bother? We start. These are knee-jerk ego thoughts that I do too. So there's no shame or blame here. I mean, I had to learn how to stop it. Sometimes it's like a record rip in my mind, and I just take a deep breath and fill the lungs and hold it for 10. Exhale out of the mouth, and I'll literally say, "All is well." right here, right now, in this perfect moment, I am okay.
Yeah.
And you just come back to the moment.
To the moment. Yeah. Love it.
And that's something that I believe in. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I love that. Well, you're obviously very passionate about this. You've been through a lot yourself. You talked about some things that you've been through. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you're comfortable with whatever you're willing to share. Just some of these struggles that you've gone through. You've already mentioned a few. I know that when you turned 39, your husband had left you with, raising 2 kids. I mean, that's kind of when you said you hit rock bottom. So just share a little bit more about your own personal journey around your own trauma and kind of how this has all played a part and how you're so passionate about helping others in this area now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the experience got me back on track. I don't know if any of your listeners have issues with codependency as well as childhood of addiction, but oftentimes we can put other people first to the point where we lose ourselves and we don't even know it's happening. It's just a little slippery slope. A lot of women are almost trained that way, to be a good wife and mother. You put everyone else first and you're expected to do that. And it can just start little by little and little by little and little by little. And then suddenly you can't even remember what your favorite song is or what your goals are,
Right.
And so I sort of fell into that department. I was very pregnant when we moved to California because I needed a specialist. And there wasn't one in England. And so we moved back here. And 6 months later, my ex left. He had an affair and he left. And what was interesting now, looking back through that, because it was a long time ago, right? Now looking back, 12 years later, I can see that sometimes God does for you what you won't do for yourself. I needed to leave a long time ago. I wasn't allowed to do my creative writing. I wasn't allowed to do my yoga. I wasn't. It was deemed not making enough money for the family, and I wasn't allowed to do things that made my heart sing. And it was really, it got me on this path of doing a lot of yoga trainings and meditations. Now, how did I do that? Raising an infant by myself, that was really hard. My mother was dying of Alzheimer's. She got early onset, and I was by myself in California with a 6-year-old and an infant, and that was just, I was in shock for a long time. I was in shock. And so I just little by little, I can't, that's really what got me into yoga though, because I couldn't feel, my shoulders were curled forward. A lot of people who've been through heartache, they cross their arms all the time and their shoulders are curled. And I even had a brief stint of like amnesia for 5 minutes. Like when you're in high levels of anxiety, things just shut down, and lack of sleep, and and somehow I made it. My boys were so worth it. And but I don't know if I would have found my way back to fiction and getting into a support group that's for codependency. And I don't think I would have done all that. And I'm a much happier person now. Isn't that interesting? But here's where you and I were talking about this before. We always have a choice in life.
Yeah, I want to talk about this.
And one of the things I really believe in is not lecturing, because I think that everyone's journey is so unique and powerful. And I could have made this journey 15 years earlier, but for whatever reason, I wasn't ready. Do you see what I mean? And it's like,
totally.
It's so if someone's listening and thinking, well, it might've been easy for her, it's all timing, and when the message hits your heart space and you're motivated, great. But oftentimes it takes being away from anyone who shames and blames you. You like, I had to pull myself away from any judgmental people in my life who would trigger my fears. Like, oh, you'll never survive in California being a yoga and meditation teacher and doing freelance writing. Oh, anyone who you got to get that full-time job. You can't be writing those novels. Like anyone who would trigger those fears, I had to let go of. And there's no way I could have let go of them without yoga and meditation, because in yoga, you take a lot of deep breaths and you think about miracles happen every day. Why not today? Yeah. And you start to do the I am meditation, which is you inhale to sow, and you exhale to hum, which means I am in Sanskrit. And then whatever comes in, you already are. It's like a whisper from the universe reminding you, I am enough.
Yeah.
I am deserving. So I guide that every week to my
Wow.
yogis, and you keep bringing it in. You know, I'm loving, I'm lovable, I am worthy exactly as I am. There's nothing I need to do to be deserving. Being born means I am deserving. Whatever messages people have told me is about them,
Yeah.
not
Wow.
me. And so you if you repeat these messages enough, it'll sink in like a watermark, but it takes time.
Takes time. No, very well
Yeah.
said, Laura. Thank you for sharing that. You know, how would, there's many definitions that people will give us about what happiness really is. I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
how you would describe it, because I'm sure you have a very profound way of saying it, because you discovered it through choosing it. But how would you define happiness?
That's a good question. I mean, I think Abe Lincoln said people are as happy as they make up their minds to be. And happiness is not a destination. It's not in your bank account. For me, I'm happy if I feel safe and serene, at ease, when I feel like all is well, I'm exactly in the flow of where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like I feel lucky that I do yoga and I write every day,
Yeah.
and I set my own schedule. I get to hang with I have a 12-year-old now, and
Okay.
I can hang with him after school, and that makes me really happy. And sure, I could be making a lot more money if I was a full-time editor again at a magazine, but then I'm not with my boys enough, and I'm not able to work out and stay healthy. For me, it's I am so much healthier than even 20 years ago because of the autoimmune
Yeah.
and getting that under control. It's 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 just miraculous when you wake up and you feel refreshed, and there's no backaches, there's no headaches, there's no joint aches, and it's amazing.
Wow.
That's what I wish for everyone listening, because a lot of times our mood dis-ease, like, has a lot to do with whether we're sleeping well,
Mm-hmm.
and whether we have time to take care of ourselves, um, get checkups. I mean, I know it sounds, there's these little things in life. Like if I have time to garden in the middle of the day, that just
Yeah.
makes me happy. It's like it's the little things.
Yeah.
And it's, I think choice and safety. So whenever someone is in a traumatic experience and say they have to make a instant decision to move, and maybe they've lost a lot of money, for instance, it can be hard to find these feelings of safety. And I get that. And there's so many Americans that are working 2 jobs,
Yeah.
and it's really important to know that it's going to get better, that you can do this, and to get help when you need it. Maybe get a
Yeah.
friend to babysit your child and go in your room or take a hot bath and do some deep breathing.
Yeah.
Put on a meditation CD. Like Chopra has a 21-day free challenge right now with Alicia Keys. What more beautiful voice is there than Alicia Keys? And you can just plug it in and listen, so you don't have to work so hard. Sometimes if you've
Yeah.
got so much going on, it's hard to just drop into a meditation. That's why guided ones are nice. And then you can
Yeah.
just, whatever listeners are going through, there's at least one other person on the planet probably going through something similar, and
For sure.
surrounding yourself with people who believe in you. And if you don't, finding it within is
Yeah.
so important. So important.
Love it.
And that to me is when you're at a place where you feel safe and that all is well and somewhat in control of your days. As a woman who's been through a lot of PTSD, that's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, very well said. A couple things that hit me. One, the simplicity. You said that it's the simple things, it's the small things. And I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
pusher and believer of that. I think we as human beings, and I'm guilty of it, where I overcomplicate things. I overthink it.
Mhm.
I've got to do all this and then I'll be okay, and I love what you said, hey, it's the simple things. It's, if I got time to go to the garden for a minute, I'm going to go do that. If I can listen to a meditation and a soothing voice, and I'll do that as well. So I really love that. And I was going to mention, before you mentioned Queen Latifah's voice, you have a really good voice. Like your voice,
Thanks.
very good meditated voice. It's just very soothing. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Well, thank you. I've got a quiet voice though, so I often hear "speak up" in my classes.
Right. Oh no, it's awesome. I think it's exactly with how you live your life. And speaking of that, what does a day look like for you? I mean, what do you do? Obviously, I guarantee, we understand that all these things you're telling us. I'm sure you do the meditation and the yoga,
Mhm.
but what does a day look like for you? Like,
Sure,
yeah,
I'll
let
tell
me
you.
hear it. Yeah.
So about 3 years ago, I downsized, and because when I lived in Europe, I'm just adding this. When you live in Europe, almost everyone, like entire families, share one bathroom, right? Like in London and Paris.
Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what? I know Americans have their big homes and everything, but I really, 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 because my child support was being cut in half, and I was like, I really, 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 really don't want to go back full time. I want to spend this time with my children. It's really important that I'm here after school and these sorts of things, especially in LA.
Yeah.
So we live in a tiny cottage with one bathroom. And what I love about it though is that it's still like an 8-minute walk to the beach.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I freelance, right? Still. So I'm currently writing for Canyon Ranch. I'm hoping they'll let me go for free. We'll see. There is an
Yeah.
expensive place, Um, so I'm helping them write all their articles for their relaunch, but I can set my own time for it. So this morning I woke up, I went down, I got my son ready for school, and I went to the beach. And today was just a walk on the beach day or a run on the beach day. I mix it up between yoga, and
Okay.
ran on the beach before it gets crowded with all the Memorial Day
Yeah.
people.
That's good.
Um, and then came back up and started working for my articles. I've written 4 articles this morning,
Wow.
one on depression and meditation and blood pressure and prostate cancer. Interesting enough, I told you before, stress is a common denominator in all of them,
In all of them. Yeah. Right.
right? And I'm talking to you, and I'll go meet my son at the farmer's market when we hang up, and then talk to my agent. So I've got really exciting news. I've got 2 novels that I've been working on for the past 8 years, and we've got a
Nice.
bunch of publishing houses interested. So I hope the next time I get to talk to you, I can tell you when one of them is getting published. So
Yes. I
probably,
would love. Well,
yeah.
congratulations. That sounds
Thank
amazing.
you.
Well,
Thank you.
you're doing a lot of good. You got a lot done today, obviously. And, again, I really respect the way you live your life, but more importantly, what I respect you even more is how you've not allowed, but you've gone through some really difficult things in your life,
Mm-hmm.
but you're looking at it as it happened for you in a sense, because look what you're doing now. I mean, like you said, had you not gone through on any of that, you wouldn't be doing any of this. Who knows what you'd be doing, but it's
Yeah.
interesting that all those trials and those difficult things you went through led you to discovering all of these amazing things, the visualizing, the yoga, the meditation, the nutrition, and
Yeah.
and like you said, just these simple things that you keep talking about. And it's just beautiful how you live your life.
Thank you. I have a strong belief that um, we all have higher selves. I did a course in miracles with Marianne Williamson, and
Oh yeah.
I love,
She's awesome.
yeah, exactly. Right. And I went to one of her New Year's Eve celebrations. I got to meet her and talk to her.
Oh wow.
And we talked about how women, especially because she had been raped at 19 in New York. And she doesn't really talk about it a lot because for her that happened so long ago and she's moved
Yeah.
past it. But we were talking about how often people focus on the reality of their situation, and then they attract more of that,
Yeah.
or their past, and they attract more men like that. And it's hard to believe that everyone has a higher self who actually is kind. And so when you do a
Yeah.
Course in Miracles, you have, one of the things that it requires you to do is to believe that everyone has a higher self. And in yoga, we say namaste, the light in me sees the light in you. And one of the things that I'll often tell, if I sense someone in the class is struggling because they've been through something by someone else and it's hard to forgive them, I'll say, just remember that light only reflects off the stillness of water. Our bodies are 80% water.
Yeah.
So if you're anxious, the light isn't reflecting. And if someone else has forgotten who they are, has forgotten their light, and is behaving outside of their highest self, there's no way they can reflect light.
Wow.
So you're not even meant to connect with them.
Yeah.
But they can be a teacher to you. They are your teacher. They're teaching you patience. They're teaching you confidence. They're teaching you how to take care of yourself. They're teaching you boundaries. And I've had a lot of teachers in my life. And so I have to find gratitude for them because I would not have made this journey without them.
Wow. That's powerful. Thank you. Yeah, I love the light imagery that you're talking about. I was just picturing that and how true that really is, And I do believe that we are love and light and energy, and that like attracts like, and our frequencies, if our frequencies up here, we're going to attract the same type of frequency that's in that same realm. And I just love what you're saying. It's just ringing true to me. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
You mentioned, and I hope I can ask this, but you mentioned maybe you could put us through a maybe like a 2-minute guided meditation. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
And I think our listeners will be like, okay, so if you're driving your car right now, pull over.
Not now.
Yeah, pull your car over. But if you're in a place, put some things down, put your phone down, and let's have Laura take us through a guided meditation.
Okay, so do you prefer light imagery or do you prefer choosing how you'd like to feel?
Let's do light.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, everybody, separate your feet, ground them if you can. So if you're sitting in a chair, and then if you're laying in the bed, don't worry. Just, as my favorite meditator, David G says, feather your nest, get comfortable, right? It's not meant to be painful, right? And place one hand over your heart space and one hand over that. And just bow your head a little bit, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Belly fills like dough, ribs expand, fill those lungs like balloons, and open your mouth and exhale. Deepen your exhale. Do that again. Inhale, breathing through your nose. Let the belly expand, fill the lungs until something feels like it's bubbling up into your throat space, and then open your mouth. One more. I call these a cleansing breath. Inhale, deep breath in. I want you to dig it up from your toes, any anxiety, fear, doubts, your stuff, and open your mouth. Exhale, let it go. Good. And now you can place your hands in your lap, palms up for receiving. A lot of us give, and it's important to balance that with receiving. Just breathe peacefully in and out of your nose. Your teeth are not clenched. Your shoulders relax. Maybe even roll them a couple of times. Lean back in your chair. And I want you just to start to scan your body. It's just a mental scan. It's not a big deal. From your toes up to your knees, your hips, front of the legs, back of the legs, ankles, toes, belly, low back, mid back, shoulders, chest, neck, whole spine, elbows, wrists, pinkies, thumbs, index fingers, ring finger, middle finger, eyebrows, space between your eyebrows. Let go of what you think you know. Top of the head, base of the head, whole body, all your organs, all your blood cells. And just notice where your mind pauses. That's all there's to it. Don't second guess it. And we're going to start what I call Ujjayi Pranayama, where you deepen your breath. As you exhale, you make a humming sound like the ocean. It's like you're trying to blow out a candle with your mouth closed. Send your breath to wherever you're holding tension. Maybe it's your jaw, maybe it's your temples, maybe your belly. We hold stress in different places. We're going to take 5 breaths like that, just sending the heated breath, which is calming to your central nervous system, to where you're holding any pain. And maybe it's your heart space. Just send it there. Ask for it to open until let go. 3 more breaths. Listen to that exhale like you're listening to a seashell, like the ocean sound. Good. And I want you to visualize really calm water. The ocean is like mid-afternoon. Diamonds of light are dancing on the waters. It's not rocky. It's not stormy. It's just really peaceful. And the light is reflecting on it. And I want you to visualize your body, 75% water, just reflecting that light. You can feel it dancing throughout your veins. Joy flows through my veins with every breath. Start to bring in that energy of healing. That light is just coming into your body with every inhale, and every exhale, you're sending it almost like it's cleansing your cells, your organs, your tissues, strengthening your bones, your heart space, your brain, every synapse, every telomere. And really feel the light coming in where you need it. And allow it to reflect the light of anything that brings you joy. You don't have to say God. You don't even have to say a higher power if that's not in your vocabulary. But when you're in nature, when you're with an animal that loves you unconditionally, that wags its tail when you come in just for being alive, feel that feeling that lights you up. And start to ask yourself what lights you up. Maybe it's dancing, that favorite song. What lights you up? Maybe it's a project that makes time slip away. This is our moment where we slip into that space where we flow with gratitude. We start to think about what flows, what works. You know, there's times when we get the parking spaces, we start thinking with gratitude of what works in our life so we can attract more of it like a vortex. So take a moment to think about what's working in your life. It's a powerful choice to think about what works rather than what annoys, right? So people, pets, places, moments, butterflies, something you saw today, a kind person, somebody who smiled at you. Just bring it in and know you're attracting more of it. Take a few moments. Open your heart. You're so deserving. What are you allowing in? Bring it in. And we're going to finish this guided meditation with setting an intention for your weekend. Doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be drinking water and flossing your teeth, honestly. But think of something that you'd like to bring in. And it could just be one word, like serenity, peace, sense of safety. Nothing concrete like a certain boy, please. Just something open and spacious so that the universe can even delight you with more. Good. Now take a deep breath in. Through the nose, shoulders rise up to your ears. Squeeze the shoulder blades together and open your mouth. Let it go. One more. Inhale. Fill the lungs. Hold it up at the top for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale out of your mouth. And open your eyes.
Wow, that was awesome. You really do have the perfect voice for that. I feel I feel so relaxed, and I'm so grateful that you did that, because I know there's many people out there who are suffering, and this is a simple way, even if it's just for a few minutes, like we just did here. Your suffering subsides, it lessens, and at times it goes away, even if it's just for a few minutes. So I think it's important that we do things like this that kind of bring us to the present moment, like you talked about earlier. And again, I just love everything that you do, Laura. It's
thank you.
You're an inspiration to me. Like I said, we first got connected, a little over a month ago, and I've been doing a lot of research on you. And I'm really impressed by how you live your life, and how you've taken what you've been through, the good and the bad, and you're making a difference in people's lives because of it now.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. If people want to reach out to you and they want to get to know you better, they want to, get your book and maybe get these books that are coming, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I would just at my website, Laura K ROE, like fish eggs, laurakroe.com.
Okay.
And then I also, if someone's struggling financially, just send me a note, and I'll send you the book. The other thing too, my meditation book, the other thing too is I do Zoom stretching and meditation classes twice a week.
Oh,
They
okay.
are very inexpensive.
Okay.
They're through the hospital who wants to do good. So it's through a Torrance Memorial Medical Center. So if anyone is interested, send me an email through my website. They are less than $7 a class.
Oh, wow.
You do it by Zoom. You don't have to be seen. You can cut your camera off and you can breathe deeply and just do some stretches. And it is amazing for getting a good night's sleep. So that's Monday at 4 and Wednesday at 5. No one is in rock star shape. Trust me. A lot of these are people that are overcoming cancer, but everyone cuts their cameras off. And it became so popular during pandemic, that we're keeping it, even though studios are reopening, because it's allowing people from all over to have a really inexpensive way to relieve stress. So you won't find it easily online, but if you email me through my website, I'll hook you up.
Beautiful. Thank you. That sounds wonderful. Well, thank you for taking some time out of your schedule today. And thank you for your intention to make a difference. And you did. And I'm impressed and I'm inspired by you. And I'm sure those listening feel the same way. And again, thank you for being an example of what it looks like to live a life of, in the present moment and free of stress, or at least lower stress. And again, it's very impressive to watch.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It was great being here and chatting with you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, there you go, folks. I told you, another amazing person, Laura K. Roe. Please check out her website. Reach out to her, like she said, and drop her a note and go get her book and sign up for that class. Or if you just have a question for her, if you're struggling with anything, obviously she's covered a wide range of things. She's been through a lot, so she understands. And I encourage every one of you to reach out to her and then learn more about her. You guys are going to just be blown away of all these great things that she's doing. So love you guys. And again, Laura, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Namaste, right?
Exactly.